Hi everyone, this is Cosmo. When Cosmo joined my family 5 years ago, he saved us from the tragedy of losing my severely autistic, now 11-year-old son to early residential care. Keith can't make his body do what his brain asks it to do, and he can't speak. Keith's communication difficulties, his sensory processing disorders, and his autism-related health problems make the world a terrifying place for him. By the age of 5, just bringing Keith for a walk could produce such a cascade of fight or flight behavior that it became impossible for me to take him out anywhere. Despite the huge support I was getting from my family, the logistics of single mothering Keith and his older brother, who's 3 years older, when the only place that Keith could go was home, my parents' house, and his special school, were enough to bring me very close to one of the many near breakdowns I've experienced as a parent of an autistic child. But that was, until we got Cosmo, I basically couldn't bring Keith out. But now he is socialized and he enjoys a rich life in the community, and it's because of this dog. The way it works is that Keith wears a rucksack which attaches to Cosmo's jacket, and they form a unit. Boy and dog form a unit. The adult controls the dog, and the dog controls the child. Our first attachment consisted of parking 10 feet up the road from my parents' house, which Keith loved to go to. We opened the car door, attached him to Cosmo, and he ran into the house screaming. The next day, we parked 10 feet further up the street, and we did it again and again, day after day, until I was parking the car a block away from my parents' house, and Keith was walking attached to Cosmo with relative calm. I'll never forget the first trip we made to my local shop with Keith attached to Cosmo. What normally takes 5 minutes there and back took a whole hour, with Keith throwing himself on the ground, trying to run away. Not very easy when you're attached to 9 stone of big dog and you're only 6 years old. But, we did it. And that trip, I had more trepidation about that trip than I had traveling in South America for 3 months. That can tell you a lot. Living with autism really is like living under siege a lot of the time with severe autism. We're dealing with behaviors, screaming, challenging behavior, opposition, and then the battle moves out into skirmishes against the state, which so scandalously neglects families coping with autism. I have spent years fighting and fundraising. I've had to fundraise with the help of family and friends over 100,000 euros to provide the critical one-to-one education and therapies that my son needs. Autism mothers are amongst the most formidable people I've ever met. Our tenacity comes from years of warriorhood. And if I didn't have the support I had, the amazing support I have from a wonderful circle of friends and my family who are here tonight, I really don't think, it's survivable. And my heart goes out to the people who are coping without that level of support. My kids and I would have descended into sort of a living hell from which there would be no escape if we didn't have that support. And it's with the utmost compassion that I view the death of a mother and her child in the UK a few years ago, when this young woman jumped into a river from a bridge, holding her 4-year-old autistic son in her arms. One of the most frustrating things as an autism parent is the lack of clarity in the medical world about what can help our children. The emerging science is showing that it's not just a fixed genetic disorder, but in fact, autism is a reaction, is a sensitivity to toxicity. And that sensitivity produces and really contributes largely to the behaviors that are associated with autism. And when autistic comorbidities, the diseases underlying the primary diagnosis, are treated, the children often get much better. And in fact, some severely autistic children have actually fully recovered. In my own son's case, when he turned 8, his toxic burden just reached a tipping point. He became impossible to put to bed. He fell asleep screaming and woke up screaming. He lost many of the gains he had so painstakingly made over 5 years. He became aggressive, self-injurious. He was pinching himself back in blue. He was hitting his hands off hard surfaces, banging his head on the floor. He was, as well as being unable to sleep, he became extremely hyperactive. We looked at, I finally found a doctor who tested him, and he did turn out to have serious gastrointestinal problems. I educated myself on how to really clean up his diet, and very quickly we saw a major improvement. There were no more ear infections. The headaches he was constantly suffering from became a thing of the past. He no longer had to take daily amounts of painkillers. He stopped being aggressive. He stopped injuring. He stopped self-injuring. He lost his depression. Most joyously, he began to love going to bed and developed a real talent at last for sleeping. His brain woke up. He started learning quicker. He just brightened. He looked much better. And that's just from diet alone. So, we really have to look at the comorbidities of autism. The next thing that I'm really excited about and have a lot of hope for is a method that will finally let Keith develop communication beyond just expressing his basic needs. He can do those. When he had a headache, he was able to point to his head. There was one night when he was in severe pain that he did actually manage to tell me through sign language, "I want help." But I'm hoping there is a lot more inside him, and I know there is. This method is called the rapid prompting method, and I'm going to meet a bunch of mums in Mayo who are pioneering this method tomorrow to talk to them. Their children aged between 10 and 16, all severely autistic nonverbal children, have moved from doing baby work in school last year to doing age-appropriate academic work in just 1 year with this method. And they are showing that they have rich emotional and intellectual lives. And finally, they're breaking through their locked-in syndrome. And this method, which is basically a way of teaching them to point to a letterboard and thereby write, is actually breaking in to their real intelligence. And I really can't wait for my son, till I can see my son being able to prove, just how smart and funny I really, really know he is. So finally, I'd like to just make to make a resolution tonight to really do our utmost to help the families that we know who are struggling with autism. They really, really need your help, practical, emotional, and financial. And also for us to recognize that autistic children are the canaries in the mine shaft. And we need to do the best we can to stop the rising tide of the autism epidemic. Thank you.